I'm trying, but you won't cooperate. Say hello. Say hello, everybody. Look, the special guest on tonight's show is Gromit. Gromit is here. Gromit, hey, say hi. Say hi to everybody. You don't want to be here, do you? All right. He's gone. He doesn't want to be a special guest. It was a failed attempt at having a special guest on the show. 2016 starting up just like 2015 ended. Welcome to the show, folks. This is January 6th, 2016. I hope you all had a fantastic holiday season, whether you had a good Hanukkah or a Happy New Year or a Merry Christmas or all that kind of fun stuff. Hope you enjoyed it and had a safe and happy holiday. Hope you got good stuff under the tree, too. I got, I'll show you. Wait, hang on. Just wait. I knew I was forgetting something. I was forgetting to get something ready. And so, Christmas, we had this brilliant idea of decorating the house with these. Oh, look at that thing. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? I don't even know how to fold it in. Hang on. This goes in, and then this part closes. It closes. Anyway, this part closes. This is an old film camera. It is I think it's an old Kodak, as a matter of fact, an old Kodak Bellows camera that slides in and out. We got a bunch of those for, you know how you have stuff on top of your kitchen cabinets? So I've got 9 of those on top of the kitchen cabinets now. That was my Christmas present. It's pretty cool. It looks really good. I don't know if you saw the pictures I posted on Twitter over the holidays, but it looks really, really good. So that was bring it over. My Christmas. There we go. Fixed like magic. The magic of television. I'll fix that in post. It's a little ratty and beat up, but that's okay. They're just for decoration. I've never shot film. I'm not going to shoot film. But it's got, look at this. It's got the old camera release. Can you see the thing moving? That's how you hit the shutter. That was the shutter release button. Gorgeous old cameras. There's a couple of Brownings and a couple of Russian cameras, Praktika or things like that. It's really cool stuff. So next thing is we're going to start haunting old secondhand bookstores. So I want to find a bunch of old secondhand books on film photography, and use those to stack the cameras on top of. So I'll have the 2 or 3 books, then a camera on top. I think it's going to look great. So Merry Christmas. It was a wonderful, wonderful Christmas. On tonight's show, we're going to talk to a good friend, Jim Dalrymple, about The Loop of The Loop at loopinsight.com. I'm going to talk to him about CES and the tech that we see there and why, for the most part, I know we go through this every year, for the most part, you should ignore CES. There's no real reason for the average person, the average media outlet for that matter, to pay any attention to CES whatsoever. I say this every year. It's because CES is a vaporware show. It is not a show, even though it's called the Consumer Electronics Show. It is not a show for consumers. It is not a show where, for the most part, the big tech, the big themes that we see at CES are ever going to make it to the light of day. Or certainly not going to make it to the light before this Christmas, maybe. A big thing you're hearing a lot about nowadays from CES is VR. Now, do you know what VR is? I'm sure a lot of folks listening to the show know what VR is, virtual reality. Do you want virtual reality? Yes, I'm sure a lot of folks listening to the show want virtual reality. But the vast majority of average people do not know and do not care what virtual reality is and do not want or need virtual reality. Eventually, it will become a thing. Right now, it's a thing possibly for gamers. Most of us aren't gamers. Most of us aren't into those kind of games that benefit from virtual reality. Often talked about at the same time as VR is AR, or augmented reality. Now, augmented reality has been around almost as long as virtual reality, and it is more useful. There are several apps on the iPhone, for example. There's an app called Layers, Layars. And Layers is kind of cool because It is an augmented reality app. As opposed to faking reality, it overlays reality with its own information. And what that means is you can start up the Layers app and say you are walking down the streets of New York, and you can hold your phone up, and as you move around, the augmented reality app will show you what those things are. Not in real life out there, but on the phone. So when you're holding it up at the New York Public Library, it will give you information about the New York Public Library. It will give you information about the architect. It'll go to Wikipedia and get information. It will show you a map, maybe. It will show you restaurants. There's a Layers app for restaurants where you can find out where that restaurant is and how far away it is, how many miles or meters or yards it is from you, what kind of food, that kind of stuff. So those kinds of things are slightly useful. They're particularly useful, although I haven't seen it used a lot, in the same kind of an environment like a museum. One of the problems that you have in a museum is they often have the object and a little tiny plaque. And maybe you can't read the plaque, it's too small, or there's a crowd around it. You can use an augmented reality app to point at the object, the painting or the sculpture, and get a full listing of the object's importance, why it's in the museum, when it got there, how much it cost, who the artist was, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. As Brian says, a World Lens does the same thing to signs. World Lens is a really cool app. It was bought by Google about 2 years ago. It's now free, where you can hold up your iPhone. You open up the World Lens app, hold up your iPhone to a sign in a foreign language, and it will do live translations of the sign. It's really, really cool. I've yet to be in an environment where I could use it, but when I was in Italy, I would have loved an app like that. It's not an exact translation, same as Google Translate. It's not an exact translation, but you can generally get the gist of the idea of the warning sign or the information sign. So that's an augmented reality thing, which I think can be much more useful than virtual reality. The other thing that you're going to hear a lot about from the media is this Internet of Things. At some point, probably within our lifetimes, within the next 10, 20 years, every device that you buy will have a sensor of some kind in it, will have a way to connect to the internet in it. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? That's like most technology, it's neutral. It's how it gets used that'll be important. But the idea of right now, the Internet of Things, is these devices will talk to each other and transfer data back and forth and then use that data in some way. So, for example, a lot of folks have this Nest thermometer. And the Nest thermometer is kind of cool because it can learn when you're in and out of the house. Well, I just saw an app today that would geofence your house. So using your phone, you would tell your phone where your house is, and you would tell Nest where your phone is. And then when you walked outside the geofence, the Nest device would know you've left the house and would turn your heat down. When you got within a certain radius of your house, your phone would then tell the Nest device, hey, Shawn's coming home, turn up the heat. And that can be extended into a bunch of other things. Again, I saw this at CES 12, 15 years ago with the connected home idea, where you had a key fob on your watch on your watch keychain that when you walk toward your house, it would know Shawn was coming home, turn the TV onto the basketball game, start the coffee maker, fire up the oven because he told me earlier he wanted to cook something, to preheat the oven, turn music on, read email, whatever it is that you had set up ahead of time. And those kinds of things are coming. The problem is, as I said in the pre-show, right now there's no common language for developers to use to write code for all these devices. So the only way to know that everything works is by buying everything from the same developer. So you'd have to buy all your home devices from the same company. If you wanted a smart locks and a smart toaster and a smart coffee maker, you have to buy it all from the same company. And that's not going to happen right now. It's not going to happen for another good 5-10 years. So a lot of the stuff that we're seeing at CES is prototypes, proof of concepts, ideas, products that are Kickstarter projects. A lot of Indiegogo and Kickstarter projects I'm seeing on CES. A lot of them are just companies flailing around trying to find ideas that will make us buy new products. 3D TV was a perfect example of that. The average person did not ask for or want 3D television. And where is 3D now? Nowhere. The average person is not asking for 4K TV. And where's 4K TV? Almost nowhere. It's already getting surpassed by UHD TV. So a lot of this stuff is just never going to happen. You may have heard about the Faraday car, the 1,000 horsepower electric car. That's never going to be a reality. That's never going to be a product the average person is going to buy. The average person doesn't need a 1,000 horsepower electric car. That's just a proof of concept. Any media outlet that you're reading about that says, this is coming, this is going to be the greatest. No, it's not. It's a concept. The Faraday company is never actually going to make this mass produce. This is not the next Tesla, as some folks seem to think it's going to be. So those are the kind of tech trends that, for the most part, you can ignore. They're just not things that are coming out of CES that is worth your time, energy, and effort. We'll talk more about those a little later on in the show. Now, tech that is coming out, interesting. Now, one thing that's interesting about CES is to see how manufacturers who aren't the usual CES audience bring things to market. Nikon introduced new cameras at CES. So did Olympus, and so did, I think, Sony. Sony or Canon, one of the two. That's not the show for them. They have their own Photo Plus Expo where they normally show off these products. So it was interesting to see that Nikon announced not just point-and-shoot cameras, but a new flagship D5, which I so want. $6,000 for the body only on that camera. Gorgeous. But they also announced a new D300. Olympus announced a new TG870 tough camera. So it's interesting that these companies aren't generally thought of CES companies announcing things at CES. And also the connected car is a big deal at CES. You're seeing a lot more car companies announcing things outside of the major auto shows for consumers at CES. And that's also, I think, a little interesting trend that I'm keeping an eye on when it comes to CES. As always, send us emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com if you want to talk about CES or anything else for that matter. Also, as always, go to our page at yourmaclifeshow.com. Right there on the left-hand side, you can subscribe to Your Mac Life. The show is free, but if you subscribe, I can pay bills. Simple as that. Just simple as that. Later on in the show, we're going to be talking right after this break. We're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com about this and a whole bunch more stuff, including the news. Guns N' Roses getting back together again. Is that a good thing or not? We'll ask Jim. This is Your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. I am Shawn King, joined now in our phone by our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing? I can't find Jim. Where's Jim? I hear you making noise. Jim, you there?
Yeah.
There we go. Are you on? Have you put me on speakerphone?
I did not.
All right, just checking to make sure. What did you do for New Year's, buddy?
Nothing.
Just did you make it to the New Year's?
Yes.
You did. So you stayed up till midnight.
Oh well, yeah. It was cold under the bridge, so kept me awake.
One of the advantages that we have here on the West Coast is that we can watch the New York New Year's and pretend like it's midnight when it's only 9 o'clock and go to sleep at 9:15. It's great.
That's right.
It's great. Because back home in Nova Scotia, you'd stay up till like 1 o'clock in the morning to catch an American New Year's. It was awful. West Coast is so much easier. Let's talk a little bit about the year in review when it comes to Apple. Is there anything that we've seen a lot of? I don't want to call them interesting, but different stories that Apple had a bad year. Nilay Patel over at The Verge said that everything Apple released was in beta. We've seen other folks say that Apple had an average year in 2015. What are your thoughts on Apple for 2015?
I think Apple had a good year, a great year as far as iPhone and iPad, Macs. All of that, I think, was great for them. Yeah. Obviously, App Store, App Store turned out to be pretty good. The only thing for me that was wrong in 2015 with Apple was music.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think it was great.
I find it really interesting that we are willing to cut Apple some slack when it comes to hardware. The Apple Watch, for example, it's a first-generation device. It is a device that I didn't expect to be perfect right out of the blocks. I knew that Apple would iterate it, and version 1 was going to be good, version 2, 3, 4, 5 was going to be better. We don't seem to cut Apple the same slack when it comes to their software. Apple Music, again, first version of a product, and yet we expected and demanded it to be perfect right off the bat. Do you agree with that?
I don't. I think that we do cut Apple slack. I think the problem with Apple Music is that it just didn't work.
Yeah.
And I think that, for a lot of people that didn't come to music with a lot of music, their own music, it worked great for them. And, the radio and playlists and everything else was a good thing. But for a lot of us, music just didn't work.
Yeah.
And, I think that we're all very surprised with Apple because we view Apple as being a company that is very attentive to the details and making things work very well and very easily. And music didn't do that.
Yeah.
And I know that people have emailed me and said, I don't know what you're talking about. It works great and all that. But Apple themselves have admitted that even in their updates where they say we fixed downloading.
Yeah.
Well, that's because you couldn't download music reliably. I tried to download music one time and out of 100 songs, I downloaded 8. Even though it said it downloaded all 100. So now we can finally download music. I mean, that's attention to detail that just went way bad for Apple. So I don't think that we really give Apple a break on anything. If something is bad, then I think we say it. And so we should.
Sure.
We shouldn't give Apple a break. Just be, this is one bad application, and I think that we all have a responsibility to stand up and say, you know what, this is a piece of shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I have no problem with Neil criticizing Apple and what they did in the past year, but calling everything they did as being in beta, I think was just hyperbolic of him and ridiculous.
That's not true.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, I tell people that I love iCloud.
Yeah.
For me, it works great. iCloud works great. For many people, it doesn't.
Yep.
And that's the same situation I'm in with music.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I'm a power user of, it's music.
Yeah.
And, Apple Music just does not work. And for Apple to release a product like that, for me, I think that they should be embarrassed. And it's unfortunate that it's music of all things for Apple that it happened with. But that's the thing that I pick up on, For me, it's music.
As much as I hate to quote Business Insider, and certainly hate to quote Jay Yarrow, he says that Apple is going to have a tough year in 2016. Do you agree with that?
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Well,
why
he says iPhone sales could go negative for the first time in history. iPad sales are shrinking and show no sign of improving. The Apple Watch is not the blockbuster people thought it was going to be. I don't know who thought the Apple Watch was going to be a blockbuster because that's just not paying attention.
Let's stop right there for a second.
Okay.
What did he say about iPhone? They could be negative?
Yes, iPhone sales could go negative for the first time in history.
Okay. They could?
Yep.
Does that mean that, Apple is going belly up? No. At some point, don't iPhone sales have to level off?
Yeah.
But then again, analysts have been saying that they're going to be negative for, since 2008.
Yep.
So I don't put a whole lot of weight into that, only because I don't know what the worldwide penetration is, and Apple is moving into China more. Clearly, they're selling a lot over there. So, will U.S. sales maybe drop? We won't know that because they only give overall numbers. Yeah. But at some point, we're in this thing where we cycle through, right? And we churn every couple of years. We churn new iPhones, and people will come on. But that happens every year because people will churn out their iPhones. So I don't know at what point we will see iPhone sales stagnate. I don't know that we will ever see them stagnate. Now, Apple is going to need to continue to do some amazing things in order for iPhone sales to keep growing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. So there's iPhone. Now, Apple Watch, how do we know that it's not a blockbuster?
Yeah, that's right.
For somebody to say at this point that it's not the blockbuster that Apple thought it would be, I don't understand how. How do you say that? Because we don't know how many they sold.
Yep.
For me, Apple Watch has been a total blockbuster.
And even with the shall we say intelligent guesses from a lot of analysts, it's been shown that the Apple Watch has been on sale for about 9 months. Apple's already sold more Apple Watches than every other smartwatch combined. You've got to call that a success. There's no other way to describe it.
I think what we have to remember about products like Apple Watch and products like Apple TV is that they're a very niche product.
Yes.
And, it's not a ubiquitous phone that everybody has a phone. Not everybody has a watch. Not everybody has a need or a want for a watch or an Apple TV. So I think that if we remember that and then look at, maybe they will tell us sales, maybe they won't. I don't know when they announce. But, that's going to be a tough thing for me to say that it wasn't a success. No. But on the same hand, I can't say it was an overwhelming success either. I just think it's wrong for people to say that it wasn't a success without knowing the numbers. It's equally as wrong to say it was a blockbuster success without knowing the numbers too. You can't. But
do you think that these people are making the very common mistake of not knowing or not remembering their history? Because I got to believe the same thing. We said the same thing about the iPod when it first came out, and the same thing about the iPhone when it first came out. That the first iteration, remember the iPod? It was too expensive. Nobody would pay $600 for one of these things.
Yeah,
and yet it became the biggest consumer electronic device on the planet and stayed that way for a good 10 years. Same with the iPhone. A lot of folks said people aren't going to spend $600 on a phone up front. So I get the feeling that these people just aren't paying attention. This is Apple's history, and their history shows that they make the products better and they become worldwide hits.
Right. And, I think that when you look at the hardware products, I believe that to be true. The software products, for the most part, early on, was also true. iPhoto was a big hit. GarageBand was a big hit. If you look at some of, like, I'll go back to Apple Music, it wasn't a huge hit out the door.
No.
I mean, they had 11 million subscribers at one point, free subscribers.
Yep.
Then they went down to 6.5 paid. I would love to know how many they have now paid, because I would be willing to bet that number dropped.
Yeah. Or maybe went up for Christmas.
Well, it might have gone up for Taylor Swift, too, because Taylor Swift apparently owns Apple.
That's right. Little known. She was bought and sold to her for last quarter, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you walk into an Apple retail store or look at iTunes, every banner is Taylor Swift. So clearly she owns Apple.
The other thing people have to keep in mind when the pundits talk about whether Apple was in beta or they're going to have a bad year is you got to keep things in perspective, kids. Apple is still the world's largest company as measured by market cap. It has $206 billion in cash on hand. It made $13 billion in cash last quarter, okay? Yeah. Last quarter. It's expected to do $77 billion in sales this quarter, all right? This is not a company that's going to have a bad quarter.
I'll be honest, that's more than I made.
After taxes or before taxes? Because I hear California's a really nasty tax state, so maybe that's what it is. But isn't it funny that any other company in this situation, people would be raving about them being a huge success, and yet Apple, with all these positives and very few, if any, negatives, is going to have a bad year?
Well, when you look at the things that happen with Apple as in comparison to other companies, it is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's funny or it's sad or what it is, but it's what we have, and they will continue. I mean, at some point, every analyst has expected Apple to start going down since 2007, 2008, and at some point they just figure they have to be right.
That's right.
And when that time comes, when Apple does go down, if they do, then they'll say, see, I told you.
Yep.
I told you. I knew it. I'm the best analyst in the world.
Yep. As long as they don't get fired for being wrong.
So, yeah. But in the meantime, people are losing lots of money by going with these analysts.
Let's talk about CES, a show that both you and I are wise enough not to be at. Do you even want to go to CES? I mean, if someone paid your way to go to CES and cover it for the Loop, would you go?
Nope.
So you tried to make me do that like 3-4 years ago, and I hated you every single second I was there.
Yeah. I hated you. That's why.
Oh yeah, there was that. It is an awful show from a media perspective to cover. You can't cover all of it. It's absolutely impossible for any organization to cover all of it. And the worst part about it, from my point of view, and tell me if you agree with this, is I feel like the media lets us down. The tech media lets us down when they talk about CES by not being the filter for us by not saying, hey, this product is not going to happen. This is vaporware. This is not something you should even worry about. I'd much rather see The Verge and CNET and everyone else say, no, I'm not going to put this press release up because I know this product is full of crap.
I mean, there's some interesting things at CES. There's some interesting concepts at CES.
Yep.
There are very few companies that actually release products at CES.
Yes.
And that's a big difference. I mean, when you went to a Macworld or when you go to NAMM, there are products that are there.
Yep.
These are released products now.
Yep.
You know, as of the first day the press release goes out. These are coming like within a month, or they're there now. So there's a big difference because at CES, you have, here are products that we think people might like. And, you know, it's a new mousetrap and it doesn't really work. We can't really show it to you, but we can show you a picture.
Yep.
And we're going to crowdfund it, you know, in a month. Well,
right.
you know, well, then that's not a product.
Yep.
And that's the problem with CES. Now, from a press perspective, you're getting pulled in so many different directions that you actually cannot report on things. And CES is so spread out that it's difficult to actually get to different places.
Yeah.
So I don't like it as a show.
Yeah, it's certainly impossible for one person to try to cover. You've really got to focus on one aspect of it. Let's talk about some of the aspects we're seeing a lot of news about with regards to CES. And tell me whether you think these things will be, let's say, real consumer. It's a consumer electronics show. Real consumer products in the next 18 months.
Okay, I'm going to say no.
That was easy. Next segment. And you're right, too. Most of the stuff you're going to say no to. Virtual reality.
No.
Every tech geek at CES is absolutely wetting himself trying on these virtual reality goggles and telling us, oh, these things are great, these are fantastic. But the average person in the street doesn't need or want virtual reality goggles.
No.
In any way, shape, or form.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen. Connected cars, or more connected cars.
In what way?
Good question. I think a lot of the ideas of connected cars right now is connected to your iPhone. I see a lot of TV commercials about companies talking about connected cars in the point of view of connected to the internet to afford your car becomes a 4G hotspot, which I think is a freaking disaster. But connected in the sense of Google's autoplay and Apple's CarPlay.
Sure, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
More and more of that will happen all the time. And, you know, I think overall, I enjoy that stuff. That's a good thing.
Why?
Because I like the features of music and the features of mapping and things like that. Like when I can just say, you know, yo Siri, give me directions to the nearest Burger King. Then that's great.
Yeah.
You know, and it just pops up and everything is done. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful stuff. I have no problem with that type of connectivity. I don't really like messages and things like that. I don't like to do that when I drive, even through voice.
Yeah.
That's just me. But you know, it is a lot safer to do it with voice than anything else. So anything that is going to enhance things instead of, you know, make people more dangerous drivers is a good thing. And I don't.
Did we lose you?
No.
Okay, sorry. You just got all staticky there for a second. I like the idea of some aspects of the connected car. I like the idea of anything that can make the car safer, because as a motorcycle rider, y'all are just bad drivers, and we're tired of getting run over by you. So anything that makes a car more aware of its environment outside of its environment is a good thing. That's why I said many, many times, I can't wait for self-driving autonomous cars. That being said, in 18 months, do you think we're going to see a commercially available self-driving car?
Oh, I hope not.
No.
Oh, jeez. The news this week that GM invested in Lyft.
Yep.
And as I was reading that, I thought, okay, that makes sense because GM basically sucks balls. GM can't even make a driving car that they don't have to recall. But yet now they want to make a fleet of self-driving, on-demand Lyft cars?
Yeah.
Holy crap. I mean, really? I do not trust GM or their technology or the quality of their cars. I do not. Any of them. Now, and this is coming from a family, back to grandfathers who only own GM cars.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason that I don't trust them, because GM treated both sides of my family like absolute crap, including my father, when they would buy like Buicks and Impalas and, all these nice big cars, and GM treated them like absolute garbage.
Yeah.
And the cars didn't work right, and GM wouldn't do anything about. I just don't trust the quality. So that's why I said in the post, if this was Mercedes, I'd be a bit more on board with it. But GM, if GM driverless car comes to the bridge to pick me up, I'm saying hell no. I am not getting in that death trap.
But I think that's where we're going to see self-driving cars happen first, with commercial vehicles, with taxis and Uber and Lyft and buses and things like that.
Maybe.
I think it has to be. Because
and if Lyft wants to send a self-driving Mercedes to pick me up, I'm okay with that. Bring it on. I don't know if you've seen the video, but Mercedes has been working on self-driving cars for a decade.
Yeah, that's right, in various forms.
And it looks amazing. Yeah. Tesla has been working on self-driving cars. GM, no thank you, because I wouldn't put it past GM to hit the stop sign at the end of the street.
I think the problem we're going to have with self-driving cars is the thing that Mosquito said in the RC chat room. He said, I can only imagine the first years of self-driving cars, road rage driving assholes will have too much fun messing with them. And that's true. That's going to happen.
That will happen.
It's absolutely going to happen. You can see people cutting off self-driving cars. If I'm driving by, if I'm in the left-hand lane, my exit's coming up, I look over my shoulder and there's a self-driving car, I'm just going to move over.
Yeah.
Because the self-driving car is going to get away.
Yeah.
They're going to be designed to do that.
And you better be careful, though, because if I'm in the back of that self-driving Mercedes, I'll be throwing my Heineken bottle.
That's right. Talk about being a whole new aspect of road rage. That's for sure.
Go self-driving car, go.
Yeah. Now here's an aspect that we've seen a lot at CES, but I think it's already mostly here. Drones. 18 months. Do you think drones will be more popular than they are now, or is this just a passing fad?
Yes, no, they'll be more popular.
You think? I think this is just a nerd fantasy. I don't think I can't see this going much further beyond, say, photographers and videographers. I can't see the guy next door in 18 months still wanting to use his drone.
No, they're still going to be doing it.
You think? Yeah.
And there's still going to be those morons out there that try and get shots of fires.
Oh God, yeah.
And block rescue helicopters and everything else. And I think those people, first offense, should be jailed.
Yep.
I think they should be minimum 5-year sentence, and not even any court date. You put your drone up when there's a forest fire and you block helicopters or rescue vehicles of any kind, 5-year sentence, done. You go to jail.
Ridiculous.
And they put your drone in the cell with you.
Why?
And fly it around. The guards get to fly it around.
Okay, that's fair. I like that.
Yeah. It's a toy. I don't mind it. And for the photographers and for people like that want to take pictures, and there are valid good uses for using drones.
Yes.
I understand, but don't give them to the stupid people.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you're one of those ones that flies over a big forest fire blocking helicopters, you are the stupid people.
Yep, that's right.
So I just, I have a real problem with that. But I need another beer.
I think one of the most ridiculous things I saw coming out of CES this past week was the welt. Have you seen this?
No.
You know what a welt is?
Oh, well, it's something that pops up on my arm when Bob, the homeless guy next to me, hits.
Exactly. Unless, of course, you're Samsung. If you're Samsung, it's a connected belt.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
It's a fitness tracker belt.
This is why I don't pay attention to CES. This right here. This whole conversation. I should not be having this conversation with anybody.
It's a smart belt from Samsung. The welt is able to record a user's waist size, the number of steps taken per day, and even tally the number of hours a user spends sitting down. After each day of use, the welt can send this data off to an accompanying smartwatch for review and analysis.
Okay, well, I'm having another beer.
That's just, come
Choke on
on.
that.
We don't need connected everything, people. And that's what these folks are trying to do, is trying to connect everything.
Well, I mean, with Samsung, we already know that Samsung will throw everything at the wall and see what comes out.
True.
So this is just another one of those ideas that should have stayed on the prototype floor and not made it. But it did. So
I saw this video on the news this morning or yesterday morning. It was somebody's demo of this new smart refrigerator. Now, leaving aside the fact that I saw smart refrigerators at CES 15 years ago,
right?
The idea was, and I couldn't hear what the keynote speaker was saying, but you saw him walk up to a refrigerator, tap on the refrigerator door a couple times. And apparently either the refrigerator door became clear and you could see inside of it, or it turned into a monitor that you could see inside of the refrigerator. Now, excuse me, if you're close enough to tap on your refrigerator, open the door!
Yep.
Why do I gotta tap? Open the door!
Well, maybe what you do is send your drone out to tap on the refrigerator. And then you can just view it from your chair because you don't want to get up.
The logic might be that, opening and closing the refrigerator door wastes energy because you're letting cold out and blah, blah, blah. But, okay, if that's what you're saying, I understand that. Then make the refrigerator more efficient. Don't add more pointless electronics to it.
Yeah. Samsung
announced this might be the same one, the Samsung refrigerator that they described, and this is the way Samsung describes it, as a, wait for it, family communication center. It's Samsung's Family Hub refrigerator, which has a 21-inch 1080p touchscreen.
No, it doesn't.
That features Amazon digital voice assistant Alexa. You can't ask her what's inside the fridge, but the Family Hub refrigerator does have a pair of cameras on the inside that takes a picture every time you open and close the doors.
Why?
Exactly. What the hell's the point of that? Jeez. That's just utterly idiotic.
If I went to your house and you had that, I would just stand there all night opening and closing the door. I'd log up your email with photos.
It's just utterly insane that they would put this kind of technology into a refrigerator.
I mean, there have been some valid, although it didn't really work, some valid ideas around refrigerators.
Yes.
When you, like one of those bar fridges in hotel rooms,
yes.
Where as soon as you pick something up, it registers that you picked it up and now you paid for it, whether you eat it or not.
Yes.
But, you pick up the eggs and it registers that now the eggs are this much lower, so you must have taken 3 eggs.
Yep.
You have juice, or you have this, and then it gives you a grocery list. You're running out of this stuff.
Yep.
And, that's a valid concept. I like the concept. It never worked. But I understand where you're going with that, so that if I'm out and, now with geofencing, hey, you're passing by a grocery store,
Yep.
You need these 5 things because your fridge is talking to me and says that you're out.
Yep.
That's a great thing. Great. But again, never worked.
See, now the folks in the IRC chat room are brilliant, as we would expect. Both DH and Monty both have the same idea of the fridge locked with a message that says, "Go exercise first."
But how would it know that unless you were wearing the fitness belt?
Unless you're wearing the welt. Exactly, that's right. Monty says, "Walk up to the fridge." Fridge says, "Nope."
Awesome.
Not opening, dude.
I would love that.
Samsung describes the refrigerator. The Samsung Family Hub refrigerator enables a family to write notes, post photos, share calendars and artwork right on the refrigerator's touchscreen.
No.
No! It's a refrigerator!
No. You know what I want my refrigerator to do?
What would you like your refrigerator to do, Jim?
Do what it just did like 30 seconds ago. Keep my beer warm or cold.
Cold.
Keep my beer cold.
With
when I reach my hand in that fridge, my beer is cold.
With the Family Hub refrigerator's built-in stereo speakers, people can stream their favorite music service.
Not from my refrigerator.
Or TV content from their Samsung Smart TV directly to the touchscreen on the refrigerator.
No.
Yes!
Where's that music coming from? My refrigerator. No.
Just utterly, mind-bogglingly idiotic. And this is what I say when I talk about CES just being a vaporware display center.
This is what I'm just going to ask you. Is this stuff actually released, or is this like a prototype product?
That's a good question. I didn't see that on the press release at the website. I'll have to check out to find out whether it's a real product or not.
Am I allowed to ask you a question?
Certainly.
Okay. So, I noticed yesterday, the day before yesterday, Samsung warned its employees and investors that 2016 is going to be tough.
Yes.
What do you think of that?
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt about it. Samsung is caught in the proverbial rock in the hard place. Apple's eating its lunch on the high end, and the Chinese manufacturers are eating the lunch on the low end. They got nothing in the middle. They're screwed when it comes to cell phones. The only thing that's saving Samsung right now is its chip business, it's the business-to-business stuff. It's front-facing stuff. It's consumer-facing products. They're just getting their lunch eaten by everybody.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if in 2 years we see Samsung stop being a consumer electronics company and just be a business-to-business company.
You know what I kind of find interesting about this is that we've seen Samsung over the past couple of years. There were quarters where they reported like a 60% drop in profit in mobile, and they didn't warn. But now they're warning at the beginning of the year.
Yep.
I mean, that's got to tell you there's some hard times coming.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, that's why I say I wouldn't be surprised if they stop being, because that's what's dragging them down is all this consumer electronic stuff. It's not their chip business and their LCDs and OLEDs and all the other kind of things that they sell to other companies that then sell to us. So I wouldn't be surprised at that. Now, here's something I was surprised about. I want to get your opinion on this. The news, possibly the biggest news of 2016 so far. Guns and Roses are coming back together. Is that the kind of thing that excites you, or is that the kind of thing that fills you full of dread?
No. Actually, I am excited about it, and I'm excited about it because usually what falls down when a band gets back together is that the guitar players and the other players haven't been playing in a long time.
Yeah.
Slash has kept up a brilliant career,
Yep.
and he's been playing a lot over the past decade or more. So with that, they can go and they can do these shows. I hope that Axel gets an Apple Watch and takes those fitness hints to heart. But there's more than just Axel and Slash here.
Yeah.
Duff is supposedly coming. I would like to see Izzy come back too. Izzy was the other guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
Great guitar player. I mean, he wrote a lot of the with Slash, wrote a lot of the songs, especially on Appetite. And Izzy's a great guy.
Yeah.
So I would love to see Izzy come back too. I want to see the whole band get back together, not just Slash and Axl. Although, if that's all I've got, then okay, I'll take it. But I want to see them all get back.
You think they'll put out another album?
No.
So they'll just do the greatest hits at Coachella?
Well, no, they're talking about doing a 25 stadium tour.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So they're doing Coachella.
Yep.
But they're also talking about doing a tour, 25 stadium U.S. tour.
Wow, that'd be cool.
Yeah. So, I'm game. I'll go.
I was too young to see them in stadiums when they first were around as a band, and so I never got to see them, although I loved their music. I never got to see them in concert. And so that's why I'm kind of scared if they ever came in my neighborhood, would I go see them as a band? And I think that we'll hear more about this. It might be another, the thing that you're always worried about, it might be another Van Halen with David Lee Roth, where they announce all this stuff, and yes, we're getting back together again, and then 2 weeks later they go, now these guys are assholes, and they dump the whole thing again.
Well, see, that could happen.
Yep.
It really could, because Slash and Axl, didn't get along for
No.
a long, long time.
That's right.
But clearly they are now. So if they're getting back together and they're gonna do this show, now here's the thing that I heard: they're asking for $3 million a show. So they're gonna need to do big stadiums in order to make all this work. But $3 million a show, I'd do a reunion for $3 million a show.
You get back at Macworld or CNET for that?
Oh, jeez.
and they'll get that money and they'll sell those shows out. There's no doubt about it. There are enough.
The tickets are going to go for about $250 a piece.
Yeah.
And people will gladly pay it.
Yep.
Every penny of it.
I agree.
No, that's $250 for nosebleed.
Oh yeah, that's right. It goes up from there. Yeah, but the bottom line price will be $250. It's going to be interesting. Hopefully they'll put out a DVD and of Coachella and all that kind of stuff. It'd be a lot of fun to see them back together again. Folks, I've been talking to Jim Downpour of The Loop at loopinsight.com. He has his own podcast, The Amplified Report. Amplified and The Download Report, both on the iTunes store. Check them out. Jim, thanks for joining me, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Shawn.
Have a good night. See ya.
Bye.
As always, if you have any questions or comments for me or for Jim, you're more than welcome to send them along to me on air at yourmaclifeshow.com. One of the things we didn't get a chance to talk to Jim about, there was another, where'd it go? Oh, who was this? Mashables. Mashables posted this story. What Apple Watch? Fitbit was the surprise winner this Christmas. It's these kind of stories that allow you to point and laugh at Mashables. Because if Mashables in general, or this reporter, whoever the hell this numbnut was, there's no name on it, of course, whoever this person was surprised by the Fitbit being a big seller this Christmas, you're a moron. It's a third to a half the price of an Apple Watch. It is easy to use. It is easy to buy. It is easy to pick up and say, hey, my kid would like one of these, or my husband or wife would like one of these. The Apple Watch, if you're not an iPhone user, the Apple Watch is not nearly as attractive to you. Price, if nothing else, was a big driver of this Fitbit. Now, today or yesterday, Fitbit announced apparently an Apple Watch competitor, and the stock market hated it, and their stock price cratered. MacMan says, while we sold a shit ton of Fitbits over Christmas, we also sold a ton of Apple Watches, and a Fitbit doesn't require a phone, iOS or Android for that matter. The writer, according to Brian Monroe, was a guy named Seth Feigerman. Seth, you're an idiot if you were surprised by the number of Fitbits sold over the holiday quarter, especially given the fact that you have no clue how many Apple Watches were sold over the same quarter. So shut the hell up. Speaking of CES, this is also the time when many of us old-timers were getting ready for a Macworld Expo, which was generally used to be same time as CES, and they moved to the end of January and then the middle of March and moved it all around. Sadly, my friend Adam Angst at Tidbit seems to think that it might be coming back. It's not. There will never be another Macworld Expo. Those folks should just get that through their heads. We watched over the holiday season Mac Heads, the documentary about Apple and supposedly the Apple community. I was in it, just to be perfectly clear about that. And apparently I was the voice of sanity in the movie, which shows you how bad a movie it was. It actually gets me my own IMDb credit. I actually get a credit in the Internet Movie Database because I was in this documentary, which is actually kind of cool. It's called Mac Heads, if you ever want to check it. It's available in the iTunes store on Apple TV. About an hour. I think it was $4, and that's $3 too expensive, too much for it. But the idea is kind of ironic that Apple is more successful now than it ever has been in its history. It makes more money. It sells more product. It is more popular. It is more well known, and yet there's no show for it. Brian Monroe says it's free here, snagfilms.com. What? I've never heard of Snag Films. Is that legit, Brian? Huh. Look at that. You can skip this ad in 3, 2, 1. Skip the ad. Well, look at that. Looky here. Could have saved myself $4. There it is. snagfilms.com/films/title/Mac Heads. I didn't know it's been there. It's been there. This was a film that was shot in 2008, I believe, outside of Macworld Expo, or during Macworld Expo, at least the segments I was involved in. And like I said, it was watching it was okay. It wasn't. There were some really weird people there. This is Violet Blue. For those of you who know, I've got a history with Violet Blue, and it's not a good history. She doesn't like being challenged like so many other people in the tech community. I'm right, you're wrong. Watch it if you'd like. The problem with the film was that they tended to go for the crazy. They wanted to make Mac users look like weirdos. And you could do that with any community. It doesn't matter whether it's Mac users, Linux users, whether it is Mustang fans, Harley people, it doesn't matter. Every community has their fringe. And if you point your cameras at the fringe, you make the whole community look bad. I actually told these guys, I told them that if you guys make me look bad, I will hunt you down and beat the hell out of you. And they laughed and said, no, I'm not joking. I'm dead serious. I will hunt you down and beat you up if you make me look dumb in this movie. Because I knew that's what they were going to do. So my participation in it was controlled by me, and it wasn't done in any kind of a weird way. We were basically standing outside of the Moscone Center. Andy Nacco's in it, along with Adam Angst and a bunch of other folks you may recognize. And George still has the striped Apple logo tattoo. Yes, he does. George, our friend George Canellis was in it. That featured fairly prominently with his tattoo. He got a couple of speaking parts. George was one of the non-crazy Apple people that they pointed their camera at. And this is very funny, too, because my ex-wife was pissed that she wasn't in the movie. Pissed that she wasn't in the movie. But the point is that Macworld Expo is no more and is not going to be seen ever again. And yes, that's a bad thing. It's a bad thing. The reason I brought this up was that Tidbits had a list of the 24 Mac and iOS conferences that are happening in 2016. And there's some good shows there. There's some really interesting shows there that I would go to if I had the money. But none of them are for the average everyday person. As you all know, I'm the champion of the average everyday person. There is no consumer electronics show for Mac users. IDG killed it. IDG destroyed it, they ruined it, then they killed it. Through no one's fault but their own. And I will go to my grave saying that. IDG killed Macworld Expo through mismanagement. Simple as that. But it's always a shame that so many of these other conferences had come up, much smaller conferences, the UL conference, and there's a conference in Montreal, and MacTech, and all these other conferences that are very, very targeted to primarily developers, because they're the guys with the money, and less than 100 to 500 people. There is no show for 5,000 Mac users, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, as they used to have in Tokyo for the Macworld Expos in Tokyo. There is no show for that average person anymore, for any number of reasons. And it's a real shame. As Sherry says, YMLCon, make it happen. I've been trying to make it happen I was trying to make it happen for years. But I could never get sponsorship. I'd love to do one here in Vancouver. I think it'd be fabulous. I'd love to present a show here in Vancouver. It's a beautiful city. It's a destination. I'd like to do one in Vegas. There's all kinds of possibilities, but no one big enough in the Mac community wants to take that first step. Gruber and Adam Angst and Anatko and the other names that you think of when you think of the Mac community want to do the work involved to do one of these things. And it's a real shame. It is a real shame that there's not ever going to be another show where the average user can come, meet other users, learn some tips and techniques. And yeah, a lot of stuff you can learn on YouTube, or you can learn on videos on the company's website, but it's still not the same. It's not the same. Speaking of which, I want to say a fond farewell to Jason Adams and the folks at Circus Ponies, one of the original sponsors of Your Mac Life was a company called Circus Ponies, and they made a notebook app. They were doing skeuomorphic notebook apps before anyone had even heard what the word skeuomorphic was. It was a cool app. It was a great app for making notes, for holding bits and pieces of information that you wanted to be able to capture for later use. But Jason Adams, I sent an email out to Jason asking about it. He may now be working at Google because he says Circus Ponies has gone to that great alphabet company in the sky, and he links to an XYZ domain, circusponies.xyz, which is maybe a tease at Google. Whatever Jason's doing, I wish him the great success, because he was one of those guys that really, really helped Your Mac Life in the early years. And by the way, I had nothing to do with it. That was all Sly. Sly was the one who contacted Jason Adams at Circus Ponies, and Sly was the one who brought Circus Ponies on as an advertiser. I had nothing to do with it. So while I thank Jason, I also big thanks to Sly for making those arrangements all those many years ago. So wherever Jason ends up, I wish him a lot of success. Talking about CES, another ridiculous product I saw at CES was Smarter's Fridge Cam. Now, what it is it's a wide-angle camera that mounts to the inside of your fridge and a companion smartphone app that takes a quick snapshot. Oops, I lost it. Where'd it go? Come back. That takes a snapshot of the inside of your refrigerator so you can see what food you have or need. I don't know if this is all that bad, I think there are better ways of doing this rather than having a camera in the back of your refrigerator that sends you a picture every time the fridge is opened and closed. That seems to be just ridiculous to me to do it that way. That seems pretty silly to do it every time you open the fridge. It sends you a snapshot of what's inside your fridge. It can't work all that well either because the camera can't see past everything that's in your fridge. Your fridge is like most fridges, jumbled up full of stuff. And no matter where the camera is or how wide angle the lens is, it can't see inside your egg carton. It can't see inside your milk carton. It can't see how much ketchup you have left. It can't see if one product is blocking the other product. So I think it's of hugely limited use. But it's another one of those things that gets pimped at CES by the media. Instead of the media saying these things, the media goes, oh, look, this is the coolest thing in the world. This, look, oh, my goodness. No. The media should be critiquing this stuff, telling us that this stuff is vaporware. Or my definition of vaporware is something that when you talk to the manufacturer, they have no ship date and no price point. If you see a story about CES, about a product, and it doesn't mention a ship date that's inside of 3 months and a price point, that's not a real product. It's just simply not a real product. Dave D says, Shawn, you don't get it. You put 10 of them in your fridge for multi-angle shots. That's right. Yeah, that's what you do. Just fill it up full of stuff. For those of you who know me and who are unfortunately followers of mine on Twitter, I'm fairly verbose on Twitter. You know that I'm a Twitterholic, that I tweet far too much. Over 116,000 tweets I have now, and I'm not proud of that. I'm just saying, MacMan says, verbose? Yeah. And the reason why, and I've said this before, is because I use Twitter as a communication medium. I use it to have conversations back and forth with people. Because I sit here all day long, I don't sit in an office. I don't go to the water cooler or go to the lunchroom to chat with people. I don't go to the cubicle next to me to chat with folks. I use Twitter to do that. So that's why I'm so prolific on Twitter. But even I have zero interest in the idea that Twitter probably is going to be upping its character limit to 10,000 characters. It's about 2,000 words. About 1,200 to 2,000 words, depending on how big the words are. That's utterly idiotic. Excuse me. That is one of the dumbest ideas in the world. If only because Twitter keeps trying to solve problems that we don't have and won't solve the problems that we do have. Harassment on Twitter is still a huge problem, especially harassment of idiot men on women. Every time a woman says something that this particular group of men don't like, they get literal death threats. I'm not saying they get death threats on Twitter. No, they get death threats in person. Twitter is full of spam, abusers, and just general asshats. And Twitter does nothing about those people. You can create 5 Twitter accounts in 10 minutes and use that to spam anybody you'd like. It's been estimated that about half of people's Twitter accounts, Twitter followers, are spammers, are fake in one way, shape, or form. Now, I've got X numbers of thousands. I have no idea how many people follow me on Twitter. Don't care. Never find out. But I see when someone follows me. And quite often you can tell by the name of the person that it's a scammer or a spammer or someone I don't care about. For some reason, the Toronto Real Estate Board follows me on Twitter. Why? Because they're just pumping up their Twitter numbers. I don't care. So those are real problems that Twitter has. The idea that a mosquito says, compared to Binky on a tear, you're a tiny noise, Shawn. And compared to Glenn Fleischman, I'm just a mouse fart. Glenn Fleischman's even worse than Binky because Glenn Fleischman's always on a tear. Binky just gets verbose when he's mad at somebody. Fleischman writes like Binky all the time. So the idea that somebody would be able to post 10,000 characters on Twitter is idiotic. That's not what Twitter is for. If you want to post 1,000 words, have at it. Do so. But that's what blogs are for. That's what Facebook is for. That's what Medium is for. That's what Tumblr is for. That's what these blogging platforms are for. Twitter is not for a 10,000 character rant about something. If you want to rant about something, open up a WordPress site, rant, and send it a Twitter link to your rant. Now, from what I understand, you're not going to see all 1,000 words in your Twitter feed, because that would be utterly idiotic of Twitter, and I would immediately quit the service and go somewhere else. What's going to happen is the first 140 characters will be in the Twitter post. Then you'll click on a link and it'll bring you to the rest of it. But that's just stupid. That's utterly ridiculous that Twitter is going to do that. Again, it's Twitter solving a problem that they don't have. And ignoring the problems that they do have. I think that's what most frustrates me, is the fact that they just don't seem to get that there are other more pressing issues that they should focus on and look at before they start solving the non-existent ones. Yeah, Sherry is reporting in the IRC chat room about the cesspool. She says all of social media is a cesspool of fuckboys. And she's right. If you're a woman on Twitter or Facebook or anything else like that, there are far too many complete and utter assholes who make it their point of fun to make your life miserable. And Twitter doesn't do nearly enough to prevent that kind of thing. As always, love getting your emails. Send me emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com or to Shawn at Your Mac Life Show during the week. Got a couple of emails, really good ones, from folks about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Our good friend Scott Randall over there on the Long Island Macintosh user group said, first, Happy New Year. He said, I loved your discussion with Jim on the inductees to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The two of you see, or rather hear, things differently, as do I. Just think of it as when you look at a photo or scene that you want to take a picture of, you're looking at it through the eyes that are more experienced than others, myself included. I do, however, have lots of music experience and training. In your discussion, you hinted that certain groups are not really rock and roll. If you go to the site, rockandroll.com inductees, you'll see their criteria for inductees is quite liberal. Yeah, that's why I said it shouldn't be called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It should be called the Music Hall of Fame. There's a bunch of different folks from a bunch of different genres. He points out Cat Stevens is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Quincy Jones, Chet Atkins, a country singer. Elvis Presley was a country singer. Nat King Cole, jazz. Pete Seeger, folk music. He said, in the show, you guys mentioned Led Zeppelin constantly. Do they belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Absolutely. They were the epitome of what the style of rock was. They sold over 200 million records and, of course, had a ton of fans. Despite all that, I never liked anything they did, he says. Just like you never bought or owned anything by the Beatles, I never bought or owned anything by Led Zeppelin. Not that I, actually. I never owned a single Zeppelin track. You also mentioned that you did not like Chicago. You called them a pop band. Actually, they were a fusion band, mixture of jazz and rock. Although they did not sell as many records as Led Zeppelin, they did sell over 40 million records, nothing to sneeze at. When Chicago first came on the scene, I was a college student and working musician. All my friends were musicians. We all loved the new, fresh sound of Chicago. These guys were great musicians, and their songs were great, and their playing was awesome. The guitar solo by Terry Kath on 25 or 624 was considered one of the best rock guitar solos ever. The point is that just because you don't like a particular group does not mean they're not good. The people who choose the inductees follow criteria. If a performer meets that criteria, they are inducted. Scott Randall, Long Island Macintosh User Group. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Scott. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like every other Hall of Fame, is quite often about personal opinions. I don't want the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to be about how many records somebody sold. If you sold over X number of records, you're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That shouldn't be the criteria. The criteria as you pointed out, is in there. But part of it should be how influential you were and are to music of this particular generation. But thanks very much for the email. If anyone else has any comments about it, send them along. I love getting the comments about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Gary Apter in Boise, Idaho says, he says, to put it in my 2 cents worth, Christmas is not the time to think and be good towards all mankind. Every day is. Expand your vision on this one, sir. With regard to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it seems to me that this institution is just part of the music industry to sell more product. Life is like that, and you're going to need to get off your high horse. Maybe you can create Shawn's Music Valhalla and write about that. I have it. It's called my iPhone. I already got my own Music Valhalla. Cheap Trick are great. Steve Miller's greatest body of work was Before You Were Born. When I saw the Steve Miller Band, Boz Scaggs was his other guitar slinger. If I have to email those songs one at a time, I can do that. That tripe Fly Like an Eagle was years past the good stuff. One of the great joys of music to me is that A above middle C is exactly 440 hertz. Everything else is subjective. I don't even know what he's talking about. I wouldn't care to listen to the metal Jim enjoys. I've heard of NWA, but don't have any appreciation for their kind of music. I have plenty of no thanks kinds of music, to each his own. As I listened while on my walk yesterday, I was laughing and yelling at you. But then I graduated high school in 1970. I have my music, Jim has his, and you have yours. Don't worry about Cleveland's Hall. It is what they want it to be. I do think much of what is there is more pop than rock. I like your suggestion to change the hall's name. Good idea. Gary in Boise. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate that. Michael Curtis talking about circus ponies. He says, "It's very sad to hear circus ponies had shut down. I bought it because of the advertisement on Your Mac Life. Their ads were very good. Sad to see a longtime Mac developer close. I believe they go all the way back to the Next days." Yeah, they actually were developers for the Steve Jobs' Next platform. Bill in Virginia says, "I'm not sure which show it was. I was listening as Kim was lamenting how she had to buy a PC because she was in need of a new computer and she was unable to buy a new Mac. I was wondering why there's such an obsession over new Macs. If what she wanted was a Mac, and I understand the limitations of today's finances, why not a slightly used Mac, which you can purchase for around the same price as a new PC? It might not have all the things that a new PC or new Mac has, however. In this down economy, pre-owned and refurbished is a great alternative to going PC. Most of the Macs I have owned, with the exception of an LC475, have been pre-owned. I have not had too much of a problem with them. Mostly from eBay, however. I would seriously look at OWC or Megamax or even the Apple Store for a refurbished unit. That was my 2 cents worth of advice. I wish Kim all the best in her new job hunt and continue with the podcast." Bill in Virginia, she's actually got a new job. She is the fleet manager for a company called ModSpace. So yay, good for her. And as for refurbished Macs, even a refurb Mac costs more than a brand new PC. It's just the way it is. You can go into Best Buy and get a PC, a brand new PC, for $300. You can't get a decent, say made within the last 2 years, Macintosh for $300. So I'm with you. I want her to buy a Macintosh, but if you don't have the money, you just can't justify spending twice as much money. At the very least, it would have cost her twice as much money to buy a Macintosh than it would be to buy a PC. And as her computer needs are ridiculously simple, internet browsing, email, done, there's no need for her to spend $700 on a computer when she can buy one for $300. That's, from her point of view, just as good. So it's not really much of a solution for her, unfortunately. Dan Parks. Oh, geez, Dan, it's got a long... Oh, we already mentioned Dan's. Sorry. Don Beck. Happy New Year. Don is in Chilmark, Massachusetts. I finally signed up for Flickr, like you've been recommending for ages, to have a backup for my photos. I haven't spent much time checking out the additional features it offers, so I thought I would take a shortcut and ask you. If I delete a picture on my iPhone, does it also delete it on Flickr? What if I also have a copy of it on my MacBook or iMac? Does it delete it there also? What happens if I delete it on Flickr? Does it delete on the original platform that I took it on. As usual, I'm enjoying listening to YML. Look forward to January. No, Don, Flickr is not a sync platform, unlike iCloud. When a sync platform means that when you delete it in one place, it goes away in the other places too. Flickr, think of Flickr as a storage area. It's the exact same thing as if imagine Flickr is a hard drive somewhere else, and you have your photo on your iMac, and you put that photo on the Flickr hard drive. To get it off the Flickr hard drive, you have to go to the Flickr hard drive and delete it. It won't delete automatically if you delete it off your iMac. So don't think of Flickr as being any kind of a cloud syncing service at all. It's simply an external hard drive in the cloud. And that may be good or bad depending on what you need and want with regards to your backup or photo storage needs. For me, it's good because I want that. I want to know that I can put stuff on Flickr, and no matter what happens with my hard drives or my Macs, if they all go away, I'll still have the backup on Flickr. So think of it that way. Yeah, Monty says the answer to all those questions is no. That is correct. Sly says, I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for the Springsteen exhibit. It was fantastic, but the one thing that made me gasp out loud was seeing the handwritten lyrics for Hey Jude, my all-time favorite Beatles song. If you're a music fan, I highly recommend it. The inductions are a bit of a joke, however. The Hall of Fame inductions are a joke, Sly? I didn't know that. I've never seen them, so I have no idea. I don't think I've ever been to. It's in Cleveland, right? No, I've been to Cincinnati. Never been to Cleveland. If I'm ever there, I will go to I went to the Grand Ole Opry the Country Music Hall of Fame in Nashville. You know, I'm not even a country fan. So if I ever get to Cleveland, I'll definitely make a stop at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Folks, that's it for tonight's show. I want to say thanks very much, as always, to our good friend Jim Downpour from The Loop at loopinsight.com for joining me here on the show. And thanks to you guys for being here for the first show of the new year, whether you're tuned in live or whether you're listening to me on the archive. As always, I encourage you to send me emails to Shawn at yourmaclifeshow.com or for the show on air at yourmaclifeshow.com. Until next week, as always, I've been Shawn King, and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya!